Hello and welcome back to Build and Teach. Today we're going to be working with files in Python. We're going to start with reading files. So to read a file, you have to use the open function. And the open function has four modes. You have R, which is read mode. You have W, which is write mode. You have A, which is append mode. And you have X, which is exclusive creation mode. Exclusive creation mode works like W, right? Except that it will throw an error if you have an existing file with the same name. So write will overwrite that file if it exists, and X will throw an error if it exists, but write it if it doesn't exist. So let's just look at some examples. So in here, I'm going to go into File. I'm going to say New. I'm going to create a new text file, right? And I'm going to say sample 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to save the text, and then I'm going to run this code that uses the open command in read mode. So F equals open our text file in read mode. It puts the contents of the read into this variable called context. Then it closes the file, and then it prints the contents. You saw that we wrote sample file 1, 2, 3 in the file. And here it's open the file and it output the contents, sample file 1, 2, 3. To write a file, similar process. We use the open function, only we write it in W, in write mode. And in here we write some new text and we close the file. So if I run that command in write mode and then go back up here to the open, you can see that it says written in write mode. Now the X mode does the same thing, but it will throw an error because this file already exists. So if I were to execute this code, it'll say file exists error. If I change the name here to test file 2 and I run it, it will run just fine. Okay. Now sometimes we don't want to overwrite the entire file. We just want to add a new line or add data to a file. To do that, we would use append mode, A. So F open the test file in append mode, and we write some new content, and we close it. And if I go to the open, you can see that the first line was written in the write mode, and the second line was written in the append mode. Okay? Now, there's a simpler way to open a file. If you use the open command, you always have to run the close command. But if you use context managers and the with statement, you don't have to close the file. It just saves you some lines of code. Here we have with right is the keyword with open test file.text in read mode as f contents.read, and then you print the contents. So this does the same thing as the read mode code we had on top. The only difference is you don't have to close the file, and it has a different syntax. You can similarly write in using a context manager. So in here, I'm going to write this, and then I'm going to print it. And you can see that since we used write mode, it replaced the contents of the file with the 2 lines that we added here. Sometimes you want to read a file line by line instead of reading the entire file at once. And you can do this using a for loop and the read lines method. So with open text file in read mode as f for line in f.read lines, print each line. And here you can see it did the same thing as the read on top here. The only difference is it went line by line. Sometimes you don't want to work with text files. Sometimes you need to work with CSV files. So to work with CSV files or comma delimited files, comma separated value files, you would import the CSV library. And here we're defining some data. So it's a list of lists, right? So with open example CSV in write mode, let me remove this line here. In write mode, then we have the writer. We create a CSV writer, and then for each row we write a line of data, right? So here we've created a CSV file called example CSV. To read the file, similar process, we import the CSV. We use the open command in read mode. We create a CSV reader. Remember on the last one we created a CSV writer. Here we're creating a CSV reader. and then we read each line, and you can see the data that we created here and wrote using the CSV writer. We can see here and read using the CSV reader. Now, as always, the resources are at the end of the lesson, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks.